All right, Megan. We have people that have become, like, at first they were elevated, like people that you looked up to in the industry. I still look up to them, but we've kind of become friends.
Are you trying to introduce the Kastors?
I am trying to introduce. So people probably know Deena Kastor because, I mean, you're Deena Kastor. A6 bronze medal in the Olympics. I mean, what haven't you done?
No, I haven't done a lot, but I thought when you were starting this, like, we used to look up to them now.
Not so much.
And then you put your head down.
Yeah.
The closer we get to know them.
Yeah. Now that we really know them.
And Andrew Kastor, who has not only been your masseuse for how many years now?
Oh my gosh, for 24 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 24 years of, but he doesn't, I was actually hoping when you were saying that we're having this hip problem that you were going to bring him out of retirement, massage therapy retirement, and then I could have signed up this week for a massage.
Well, the first time I saw Andrew, he was giving you a massage. He was in the Spirit of a Marathon movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, that's a pretty good deal. Husband, gonna work out all the kinks.
Right.
You get to do all the running, all the fun stuff. And I was like, this is an impressive couple here.
Yeah, as a runner, you promote stretching, but I have to really admit that I never stretched myself. He always stretched me before runs and then massaged me after runs, so felt like I had a pretty good deal going. Yeah. But then he retired his hands and started coaching.
How did that? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, but you still at home? You don't get like the private?
No, not even. And I actually think it's weird when people say that he was my massage therapist in my career, because
we started dating before I became a massage therapist.
Because it makes it seem like a massage like went wrong, went
or
kinky,
right,
or right, yeah. A massage went kinky, and then we got married, but that's not how it played out.
Okay, so that was going to be one of my questions today: is how did you guys meet?
Are we going to talk about your pickup line?
Yeah, go ahead. You do such a great job.
Oh.
You tell the story.
Really?
Sure.
Okay.
I think we need both versions
I
of the
would
story.
agree.
All right, I'll interject if I need to.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Yeah, he'll interject. So we met, he was running for his college cross-country team, Adams State University, and I was a professional athlete, so Andrew's a few years younger than I am, and I always thought he was cute, but he asked his girlfriend at the time if he could like get to meet me, and she was like, I don't think so. And so he didn't. But a friend was over at my house I bought this little bungalow and was remodeling it, came over, and she happened to say that she was getting a massage from Andrew earlier in the day. He would give his teammates like $5 massages, is that right? Mm-hmm. Just to make a little spending money for college. And so she mentioned his name, and I said, oh, he's really cute. Well, like an hour later, he rode his bike over to my house. So she immediately went to him and told him that I thought he was cute. And so we spent some time together talking that afternoon. And then my family came into town. I took my sister to this bar called the Purple Pig on Main Street, Alamosa, Colorado. And Andrew showed up. And he seemed like super distracted as everyone was sitting at the table, like chatting and drinking beer. And I was like, you seem really distracted, like something on your mind? And he said, I didn't come here to talk. I came here to dance. That was the line.
Mic drop.
So I was like, all right, let's go. So we danced the night away, and he hasn't stopped dancing
What
since.
kind of dancing are we talking about?
Oh, he has his own moves. It doesn't.
I usually end up injured.
Yes.
Yeah, I strain my, knee or hyperextend my
Hyperextend
knee.
his knee.
I know that this is video and audio. For the video people,
I'm not
can we see
dancing.
some dancing?
I'm not dancing.
See,
No.
if we did this after today's wine
the wine
tasting,
tasting?
he
All right.
would have totally gotten up to dance.
We will make sure that we have some cameras at the wine tasting. So
Yes.
that,
All right.
Andrew can show a signature
There's a possibility.
move.
There's a
Yeah, he does something that kind of looks like the Running Man, or maybe like he's attempting the Running Man.
I actually
it's
do
got
have a question about when you guys met, because I happen to have read your book or listened to it. Meg read it.
Can't read.
You cannot read, but listen to it. And you were coming from this space at that time where you were running with maybe what we would call today in modern language a toxic environment, toxic male environment. And Andrew comes in, and this romance starts. He's a runner as well. How was that for you, Andrew, coming in and kind of feeling the situation out where it was like a negative experience for Deena?
I was just more, hyper focused on a new relationship, and being with someone that I had admired for, a few months leading up to me asking her out. And I was just in that love romantic situation versus like analyzing her like training group situation or anything. So I wasn't really,
So you weren't seeing that.
I wasn't really thinking, no, I was looking through rose colored glasses. Yeah.
And then I feel like we enhanced each other. Love seems to do that it just kind of like lifts you up and makes everything seem easier. So striving to make my first Olympic team that summer, and we were traveling the world together, like sharing hotels in Paris and Stockholm, Sweden, and Zurich, Switzerland. Like, he spent his birthday in the most amazing places because he just celebrated his birthday a couple days ago here in Paris, and we've just been in some of the most amazing cities around the world to celebrate each year. So it was like just this momentum forward, and so that summer was all about being driven by love and lifted by love, and then it became pretty quickly the two of us as a team working at how do we make it better from here.
And my educational background is exercise physiology, human anatomy, and of course I was.
He says he majored in female anatomy in college.
I've never seen.
Oh, you minored in it.
Yeah,
He
maybe
majored
minored.
in anatomy in exercise physiology
We're gonna have to
with
slap
a minor
We're gonna have to
minor
slap
in
a parental
female.
advisory on this one.
That's my joke.
I know, but I'm going to deliver it. Sorry, I took his line.
There you go.
Right.
Took his line.
So anyway, it was, coming into this relationship, I was trying to bring something to the relationship of like, well, I have all this knowledge of exercise physiology, and I'm dabbling with massage therapy, and let's just try to make you as fast as possible. So these are the things I just learned.
So before that, you weren't a good runner?
She was, yeah. I mean, she had just, made her first Olympic team, and I said, let's get in some cold baths, cryotherapy, massage therapy.
Well, that was early on. Like, people, that seems to be more of a modern trend right now.
Yeah. But I feel like Andrew really enhanced the all the other things outside of running that we could do to make our running better. When runners look at their trajectory or reaching their goals, they're always looking at how to be faster, but they're looking at their running on how to be faster. And I feel like that was kind of like the beginning of looking at what you're doing the other 22 hours of the day to make that package really work in your favor, to really emphasize the recovery so you can come back stronger.
How much do you think that being happy, like you're in this new relationship, the endorphins that come from that, the happiness of being in a good relationship, elevated your actual physical activity?
Absolutely, 100%.
A happy athlete's a fast athlete.
Yeah, that's Andrew's saying.
Coming from the coaching side now, it's a happy athlete is a fast athlete. So if you're rocking and rolling in life and you're feeling good and stress levels are down, cortisol levels are down, you're going to recover faster. You're going to be much, enjoy running and enjoy life.
And you look at that whole picture that for a while I was looking at that triad of what makes a good athlete, and it's proper sleep and proper nutrition and then hard training. But you also have to add those interpersonal relationships, not just the intimate relationships you're in, but like the outside relationships, how you're relating. It's why also having a social life and making sure you're emphasizing those human connections. You guys do that so well with your community, Believe in the Run community, and that's so important to have that in the running community. I think it's so unique for that you could bring so many abilities and so many, like just a diverse crowd of people together, and they all believe in the same thing and need to lift each other up. And I think I feel so lucky to be in a sport that can offer that across the board. This morning's run in Paris was just the epitome of that. People from all around the world showed up for you guys to lead them in a run, and I think that was so special.
And we have to throw Capuzzi and Kafuzi and Sidious
Yes.
also helped draw the crowd in. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was
And
an
I think
amazing.
people knew that Deena was going to be there.
Yeah, Bex
And-
Gentry showed up from Peloton. I mean, it was a power-packed morning.
Yeah, there was a few celebrity sightings that I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is pretty neat.
Very cool. But you guys support that and bring that together. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to want to ask some questions about the Olympics and running the marathon at a high level, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure. I actually want to go like maybe back. When did professional running become like this was what you were going to do?
You know, it was a hard choice because I have a cynical father, or maybe a father that challenges me a little bit on that. So graduating from college, he was like, what are you going to do? I guess every parent is going to ask that question. What are you going to do with yourself? And I'm like, well, I'm either going to open a bakery or pursue professional running. And he's like, well, where's the money? You know, like, how are you going to make a living? And I'm like, oh, I'm not really sure. And so it was a hard choice because I had a successful baking business at the time, was selling. I was working in a smokehouse in the early mornings, baking and selling it to establishments. So I didn't have my storefront, but that was the next step, was getting a storefront. And it was really giving me a lot of positive feedback at the time, where running wasn't really, because I was in an injury cycle. So it was a hard choice to let that go and pursue running because I felt like it kept letting me down. And it wasn't until talking to Coach Vigil in Colorado that I realized I know nothing about a sport I've spent almost my lifetime doing. And he was the guy that was going to teach me lessons. And so I just dropped everything I knew about running and was totally open to learning. And thank goodness I got into the right hands when you're that vulnerable and in needing to learn. He taught me values and a belief that I can do it. It just was going to take a lot of hard work. And when I look at so many athletes maybe having mentors, coaches, or people in their inner circle that may be giving them bad advice and telling them that they can only do it with a certain amount of help, it makes me sad, but I understand it because of how vulnerable I was coming out of college. And so I just feel grateful for that guidance and having an inner belief that I have it in me, because I feel so many of us doubt that we have these abilities. And then I've spent the last 2.5 decades working on that belief system and making sure that this space up here is advocating for me all the time. And running is such a great space to exercise our minds and our bodies simultaneously, so that our default is, or maybe not even our default. Our default can sometimes be dark and cynical, but we have the ability to change it quickly. You know, it gets easier to change it because we practice and practice and practice.
The belief system in yourself that you had early on, obviously you said the past 2 decades you've worked on it, but where did that come from? Like in the beginning, like how did you get past maybe a dad who wasn't like, oh yes, go chase your dreams? Like how did you just believe in yourself and go for it?
Yeah, you know, I can bring it back to the single workout where I was just struggling, and Coach Vigil was like, your only option is to do one more mile repeat at the park, at Cole Park. Your only option is to do one more, and you've got to ask yourself for more. And I was like, I'm thinking, how do I do that? I have nothing left. And so instead of feeling the doom and gloom of it, I was just hyping myself up inside, towing that line with the guys, and got after it. And I was like, okay, well, I obviously still have a little more in me. And then this little hill came in the park, and I was just like, oh no, not you again. But I was like, let's see if I can get over it faster than ever before. So I just charged it, and it was my fastest repeat of the session. I thought, I almost didn't do this. And so then I thought, there's something going on up here in this moment that allowed that to happen. So I've got to start pushing a little harder. And so I was toying with it day in and day out, and I was just amazed at how much more I had when my head was in it, was cheerleading. And it just became a fun game. And I've always thought of it that struggle at the 20-mile mark that we know so well. And we sometimes think oh no, here it is. It came a couple miles too early today. But I've learned to kind of get this psychopathic like laugh in my head when that moment comes, and I'm like, bring it, like let's do it. I'm either going to use a tool that's worked before, I'm going to find a new one today, but my only option is getting to that finish line. So it's been fun, and having someone that advocates for that. I've had to call on Andrew, and when I've been asked my best race, it hasn't been a race I've medaled or PR'd in. It was the 2015 Chicago Marathon, where I had allergies from the sagebrush all fall long. We had California wildfires that kept us from doing some of our key workouts, and then Piper got the flu, and I got the flu a couple days later. So I just said to Andrew, like, 3 strikes and I'm out. Like, I'm not going to go chase this American Masters record. And I explained my 3 reasons to back up support my decision. And he was like, I'm really surprised to hear you say that, because you're always looking at the bright side of things. Because what I saw is that you're still getting in, some of the longest long runs of your career. You've had your longest tempo runs of your entire career, and you're still hitting sub 5 minutes on mile repeats. So despite your excuses, I think you're really ready. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's so right. Like, how did I let that slip through the cracks? Like, both of these stories are my reality, but only this belief system is going to support what I'm trying to do. So I just dropped the excuses and ran, and ended up able to hit that time that I wanted. So it's just amazing how we can create our own stories in our head.
It's interesting because right now I know marriage is 2 ways, and we're hearing a lot of one way here. How do you support Andrew in his pursuits?
Yeah, well, I just think his coaching is so natural for him because his physiology background, he knows what energy systems you have to hit. And so Sundays, which in a lot of America is like family day, you go to church, you do these things. It's his day to create his training schedule. So it's long run with the team in the morning, and the second half of the days he's in front of that computer banging out those training programs for his runners all over the world. So I think it's really fun to see his mind work and to see him mull over what someone needs if they're not kind of hitting those benchmarks. And there's some people that he's giving his pep talks to, and some people he's trying to tone down and tamper their enthusiasm because they still have 4 months to go until race day. So I love seeing that uniqueness, appreciate that uniqueness that he works with on a daily basis. And then the professional athletes that he works with at the Mammoth Track Club, he's gone every morning, and so just trying to make it a good environment for him to come home to after he's been with his athletes. And I love to hear from him how you're tampering. There's an Olympic year, we've had some heartbreaking news, some athletes that were right on the cusp and had some disappointment this year, and so dealing with that disappointment, but also being there for their high moments too. So it's a challenging road, because sometimes I have to remind him that he can't be defined by his athlete's success. He's got to be defined by, he's got to make his own benchmarks for success. And I think that's really hard as a coach, because you want those highs, you want to ride those highs for so long. But a lot of it is just how to rally people from a disappointing moment, because the highs are there. It's just as a coach, you can't be defined by either of them.
Well, that's interesting, because you're saying he needs to define his successes now through coaching. Mm-hmm. Now that you for years had very clear markers for success. So how has that changed, since now it's not going after the, medaling in the marathon or getting into an event or qualifying for something? How do you shift and find meaning in running from there?
Yeah, it was a hard transition. I won't lie. I won't try to sugarcoat that. It was a lot of soul searching. Do I retire from a sport that I absolutely love and that's been part of my everyday, but I still feel like I need it every day? And so it was a hard time. And if my personal bests are far behind me. Why am I still doing this? And it all came down to character. That running is really an opportunity to reinforce those character traits of grit and toughness and endurance and persistence, and using it as that platform for character. I think you can always do good in that way. So it continues to shape me. I may not be my fastest self now, but I'm definitely my best self.
Are you training for anything right now?
I am training for the Chicago Marathon has that, the 5K the day before. I want to be in good shape for that. So trying to just be more consistent with running right now, which is hard when you're traveling so much. I'm amazed that you guys do it so well.
Got a tough coach over there.
Yeah.
She's getting her miles. I saw it this morning.
I know, it's amazing.
I saw her
You just
scamper
can
off,
keep adding on while we're sitting there at the buffet breakfast and you're finishing off your runs. It's very impressive. So I think a little more consistency, which I've been getting in. Thanks for the inspiration. And so that 5K and then the Every Women's Marathon in Savannah, Georgia. I'll be running that later this year.
That sounds like
Does Andrew coach you now?
Yes.
Still, oh yeah.
Yeah.
We collaborate, and when I first took over the coaching for Deena when she, when her coach Terrence left and Deena was becoming a master's athlete and trying to redefine some of the goals that she was pursuing and kind of reinvented yourself back in cross country. I suggested that Deena race U.S. cross country championships again because that was her first love at age 11 was cross country, and to get her back on track and get her motivated again to start training hard. And I first told her, I said, hey, your first, obviously, our relationship comes first over coaching and athlete and having, getting over that. And I said, I really don't care if you compete ever again. I know what workouts to give you because I've been with you for so long. I know what type of volume and workouts you need, but I don't care if you do it. And she's like,
Which
okay.
gave me an out.
It totally gave her an out. So she had to make the decision of like, okay, I'm going to pursue masters running and masters races and maybe breaking a record or two or whatever. But I was like, I'm the perfect coach for you right now because I know exactly what you need, but I don't care if you do it.
Yeah, and his observation was like, you get so strong with cross country racing, like your ankles get strong, your hips get strong, and that's really like really good bookends to sound mechanics. And so incorporating a lot of cross country training, at least like a faux, I guess it was a cross-country season because I ran U.S. Cross and World Cross, but that I just got really strong that way. And I think the sport is good for that we can have trail and cross-country to get us kind of nimble and fit in that regard. We have long runs that we rely on for endurance, and then we have speed sessions on the track that get us sharp. And so I think it's a good balance to incorporate all of them so we can be more athletic and not just runners.
What's interesting to me, because maybe it's personal to me, but working with your spouse and being coached by your spouse, there's got to be challenges. And there's got to be days where maybe you're not as receptive to coaching as you might be with somebody who's not your husband.
Yeah.
Is that ever come into the play?
You might have a different answer because I might not be the easiest person, but I don't think there's been challenges. Like Andrew's like just relentlessly supportive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had when Deena was under
Here we go.
two different. No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
When Deena was under two different.
I'm like, this is going to be new to me. So let's hear it.
Deena had two.
Bring it on.
Two previous coaches in her professional career, and I had my opinions during some of those coaching times where I wasn't involved. But since I've been coaching her for like the last 10 years, it's been super easy.
But that's
because it's also more collaboration too,
But that's also something with my first two professional coaches is that you were never contradictory of what they were doing. It was, you were just part of the discussion
Yeah.
when we were creating plans.
I had views and opinions, but I never voiced them because I knew that coach-athlete dynamic had to be solid, and it was important
because of the
too,
belief.
so.
It was important
Right.
for me to believe in the program that was set out. But you were always part of the process.
Were there ever weeks where you'd look at her training and you're like, she shouldn't be doing this?
Basically, no. It was probably more like racing choices, but
Okay.
versus training. No. I mean, I get a lot of my coaching philosophy from both Terrence and Coach Vigil. You know, it's I learned many things, many great things from them. So that's kind of like how I came about my coaching style.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Is how you like
Sure.
your coaching philosophy, and it feels like as one of your athletes, higher mileage is definitely one of your
Yes.
preferences.
More
but,
time
like,
in the aerobic zone.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Mileage is king.
Okay, well, we are in Paris for the Olympics, so let's talk about some of your Olympic experiences.
Oh, I thought we were going to croissants. I thought we were going to.
We can go either way.
Croissants in Bordeaux.
You know, I'm going to put it out there. I think croissants are overrated.
Really?
Do you see Deena's face?
Wow.
There's other bread in the family of breads that I like over croissants.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Like if you were going to make me an egg and cheese sandwich, croissant is probably third or fourth on the list of
Bagel, sliced bread,
I think you
bagel.
should be whispering that.
sourdough. Is amazing.
Really?
Yeah, we don't hype sourdough enough.
My sourdough starter's 9 years old. But there is
Wait.
a place in France that their sourdough starter is 92 years old.
I don't know. if I
Starts
want
with a
that.
P, and I can't bring it off. I can't bring it up off the top of my head. But there's two like equal distance from where we are recording right now, and it's a 92-year-old sourdough starter.
I don't know. Maybe I gotta try that.
Yeah.
Are you still baking a lot right now?
I do love it all the time. It's always something I enjoy. When I was here in Paris last year, I did take a croissant making class at the Culinary Institute.
Nice.
So learned how to make croissants, and I've made them a couple times at home. But I think if I get less of a travel streak, I might get more into it.
You have to have a lot of patience for baking, which I learned, and I don't have a lot of.
Yeah.
But your bagels are amazing.
Yum. That's a hard to do. I can't get them like that chewy texture on the inside.
Megan will like the best bagels. You guys, you can come over, work in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
We can have
I
drinks.
love that.
I don't know.
Yes, martinis.
Yeah.
It's your signature.
And then wait for the bagels and croissants. They look good.
Okay, but back to the Olympics.
Okay.
Tell me about your first Olympic experience and what that was like.
First Olympic experience was 2000. Was that 24 years ago? It's crazy. The year 2000 in Sydney, Australia, and it was a dream to make that team. I just felt like it was a pinch me year, meeting the love of my life, making my first Olympic team. The U.S. track and field team went to Brisbane for training camp, and where we went to Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. He was still alive at the time, so he gave us a tour of his zoo, and it just felt like, oh my God, this is the life right here. But unfortunately, my Achilles was acting up, and I did not have the greatest Olympic experience as far as performing. But it was those moments of disappointment where they end up fueling and motivating you, and that was a really big lesson in using disappointment not to define who we are, but to fuel who we're trying to become. And so Andrew, the moment we got back from Sydney, Australia, said, your Achilles problem is because of hip flexor tightness. We're going to stretch the heck out of your hip flexors today and see. It was like one session on the table of just like biting on a towel. I was stretching my hip flexors so hard, or he was helping me just get the greatest pull out of them, and I got off the table and my Achilles problems were gone. So this was like all the best physios in the athlete village and around Team USA that were like ultrasound, laser light therapy, acupuncture, just like bombarding my Achilles. And he was like, I think we need to stretch your hip flexors. And I was like, really? Where where were you in Brisbane? I could have used you in Brisbane. So just like fixing it just like that. So little things that he was just like not treating the spot, but like looking at my posture and sitting a lot. And he was like, we're going to.
Well, when you're living with somebody 24 hours a day, you pick up on little nuances, and it's like,
Yeah. Habits.
Yeah.
So it was that, but it fueled the next 4 years. We're gonna move from Colorado. We're gonna move to Mammoth Lakes to be a part of like a cohesive team of the best distance runners in the world, and we're gonna work together, and we're gonna focus on getting more enduring and more speed. And so it was 4 years of just meticulous work and diligent work. But it never felt like a sacrifice, because when you're like shooting for the stars and pining to hit those high benchmarks, it just feels like the privilege of a lifetime every day to make those choices to continue.
And we were having fun too.
Yeah.
You know, all that time in between Sydney and Athens, those 4 years, we were training with fun people and had a great coach and
Andrew made French toast every Sunday morning after long runs, and everyone came over to the house after the long runs, just like gorged on French toast. And
it was hard. It was hard work, but it was enjoyable
Fun
work.
work.
It was so fun. Yeah.
And I've heard, and this happens after like a big race too, even just like a marathon, where afterwards you kind of have this like, almost like a sadness or like an emptiness, like the big thing already
Postpartum.
happened. Yeah. So after the Olympics, did you ever experience any of that, or were you just on to the next?
I think it might be different for marathon runners because we always have another season. Like immediately after Athens, I was looking forward to the New York City Marathon that was happening in a month or 2 months, 2 months time. And so there's always something more. I think it's maybe also that being in the mindset of like growing, like what's the next thing? How am I going to grow? Like even on my fastest days, hitting personal bests, breaking American records or world records, I was always like, what's the next thing? And so I've always been a forward thinker. So maybe like that downtime. I mean, I definitely had bad days where like I'm crying in an ice bath or sobbing into a towel, like a hotel towel. But it's always like, how am I gonna like climb out of this? How am I gonna climb from this moment? So I feel like I don't want anyone to think that I'm just like happy and satisfied all the time. It's just that I use it to try to embolden me as opposed to let it like weigh me down.
So favorite race
That was going to be mine. It's like I would assume that the bronze medal was your favorite, and then you were talking about Chicago and the Masters and kind of like pulling something off. Like, is there a favorite marathon?
Favorite marathon, I really loved when the LA Marathon was stadium to sea. Like starting in Dodger Stadium and ending at the Pacific Ocean was just like the ultimate to me, and fitting so many iconic sites along the way. I love Chicago and London, but a favorite race experience that we might share together is the Carlsbad 5000, which is owned by Meb Keflezighi now. It wasn't at the time because he was competing at the time, but I had just competed in the World Cross Country Championships where Paula Radcliffe, the former world record holder in the marathon, she beat me and then just collapsed at the end. And I crossed the finish line and I was like, oh, like I didn't really give it all I've had. So I was like a little mad at myself. Like I want to run a race and collapse at the end. Even you have said that you're impressed with training because I'll be like dry heaving on the side of the road, and like I love Piper's like, are you okay? I love the pain. Like I just love it. I love going to the well like that. And he's like, you really impress me in training, but I haven't really been impressed with a lot of your races because I never seen you like just go to the well. And there was, after that World Cross Country Championships in Dublin, Ireland, we came back to the Carlsbad 5000, and they call it a party by the sea. Like, our season is over, we're gonna get ready for track season soon, but it's really like just a fun, fast 5K because everyone's in really good shape coming back from the World Cross Country Championships, international 5K. And so I was still mad at myself for letting Paula beat me, and I'll let you take take away the story because we were in the hotel room and I went on like a little warm up jog and he set up the massage table.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen Deena in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I get down there to San Diego and I get her on the massage table like right before the race, and I'm starting to work on her, and I feel like this energy. I didn't feel it before. I haven't felt it since. But there was like this energy about her that I'm like, I don't need to work on you at all. I just took my hands off and said, you're ready to go. Like I couldn't palpate it what it was. And sure enough, she went off.
I was like sitting there, I'm like, wait, what? Nothing?
Yeah. Yeah, it had been like 3 weeks and she had massage and whatever. And
So you never give a massage for pure pleasure. It's got to be working out of pain or
no,
causing
like,
pain.
You're asking him his love, like the love language.
Yeah, like recovery, working on something that, might be aggravated or whatever. But I got this energy and I'm like, just get out there and just go for it. I mean, it was, haven't felt it since and didn't feel it before.
And was that the day that my chip was digging into
Oh,
my
yeah,
shoe?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So they had like in road racing, the chip that you tie into your
I never
laces,
liked
which
that
was
one.
so nerve-wracking.
Yeah, they give you the zip ties, but I never trust the zip ties. I'm like, I put it into the laces,
Yeah.
So I did it, but it was like I did one stride off the line. I'm like, came over to the side, and the race was about to begin. I'm like, it's digging into my shoe, and he was like, it's fine. And I'm like, no, it's really digging. And he's like, oh no. So he's like unlacing it. You could
took
see
it
like
out.
sweat beating down. He was so stressed out. But then he retied it, and they like held it for like a couple seconds, held the line for a couple seconds. I got on the line, and we went off, and Andrew's like, I went to puke in the bushes. Like he was so,
I was having a heart attack,
so
yeah.
stressed out that I was like, get it. So then I broke the world record that day, and it was Paula Radcliffe's world record, so it felt like a little bit like redemption, even though it really wasn't. But in my head, it was. Like it wasn't the world championships.
What was the time for that?
14:54.
But now they're like Faith Kipyegon is like on the verge of breaking 14 minutes, which makes me like when I was listening to Kara Goucher's NBC broadcast. I love listening to her and Lee Diffie in the distance races. And she was saying that the Olympic standard was 14:51. And I was like, that's my fastest time in the 5K. Like, that's crazy.
What is that like when you have, because you've had records and you get to
I had
watch
records.
them.
I
Yeah.
had records.
I mean, you were the pioneer at a certain point, but what is it like? Because I think, wasn't it Chicago where you were on the truck or something, the lead vehicle?
Oh,
And
yeah.
you-
So I wasn't. That was Kira D'Amato was on the lead vehicle because Kira broke the American record earlier that year. That belonged to me. And then she was on the lead vehicle when Emily Sisson broke hers.
What
But
is
we were
it?
all there at the same event. It was Joan Benoit Samuelson that was there. So we all greeted her and
Like
smothered her
royalty.
at the finish line. Yeah.
So, but what is that like? Is it a joyous feeling or is it I wanted to hold on to that a little longer?
No, I thought it was really funny in watching the Olympics at home, seeing Michael Phelps like cross his fingers, hoping that the Frenchman didn't break his Olympic record, and he did, and he's like, darn it. But to me, I like love the progress in sport and really feel like the shoe technology has like reinvigorated the fan base, and like I love watching that the light wave technology that's now on the infields of the track,
yeah.
so you can tell if they're like on record pace instead of waiting for the commentator to give you a split and tell you. I just think it's really engaging and fun. And the fact that we're seeing, I mean, just in the stadium last night, we got to see a world record, an Olympic record, in the women's 400 meter hurdles, in the men's javelin. I just think it's so thrilling to like witness it. I saw someone, on our group run yesterday, who I was standing next to. I recognized her on the streets of Paris as the girl I was standing next to watching Kelvin Kiptum run his world record in Chicago. So it's like, it gets you like so motivated and really engaged in the sport in a fun way. So I love the records being broken, even if it's my own.
On that subject, how do you feel about the new shoe technology? Is it exciting? Do you wish you had it?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think the technology is insane, and it was fun to be here at the ASICS house and see where shoes started and where they are now. It's almost comical to see that even that was innovative, like back in 1973, like this was innovation. And it definitely took a quantum leap within the last decade. And it's been not just refreshing and fun to wear the shoes that we're wearing, but then as a fan to see the records broken. So look at the sport we're in. We get to wear the technology, but we also get to see the fruits of it as we watch the Olympics unfold.
Yeah, I look at some of the shoes even that you would wear for the marathon, and I'm like, I wouldn't run a 5K in that these days.
Right.
Like, look at all that cushion we have now.
Yeah, and thank goodness for these cobblestones in the streets to have some cushion under our legs as we're walking the city, right? Has it changed coaching at all? I'm the interviewer.
I like that we've changed roles.
Yeah, it was actually quite complicated when the shoes first came out to calibrate times on the track because before we would do a longer session on the track and then switch over to the spikes because maybe an athlete was getting ready for a track race or something and to try to dial in that race pace or actually progress and get faster during the workout. And now that's not the case. It's like almost like the inverse. So athletes are starting in spikes and then finishing like in tempo runs and actually hitting much faster paces than they would 10 years ago. Got to make sure that athletes are not wearing the super shoes, if you will, the carbon plated shoes too much because there's developing weaknesses and then you're also then you're also kind of gravitating towards like, well, how fast should an easy run be now? And you got to really kind of
talking to a super shoe junkie over here.
Well, I think the problem for the super shoes is that they feel good,
It's
and
so true.
you get addicted almost to that cush and the bounce. And so even when you're not running fast paces, they feel better than maybe a standard EVA shoe or something like that with a lower stack.
Yeah, you almost feel invincible.
Right, and I know that there's some controversy on whether or not it's causing some injuries to runners, but we're also seeing, I think, faster times because the recovery time running in a shoe that has a higher stack and more cushion, your body's not as beat up as maybe it would have been when you were running in a 10 millimeter, really thin soled shoe.
So I think that's why we're going to continue to see world and national records, Olympic records, because the carbon plate makes you immediately faster in the moment, but it's that foam technology that's giving people longevity, like longer long runs, more long runs in the week, more miles in the week. You just get to fit more in a training block, but I guess that, you've got to balance that also because I actually think that you can do so much in these shoes. I wasn't thinking so much as injury, but that your adrenal system needs to work over time because you're always just taxing yourself because your joints aren't being really demolished, and the end of the marathon isn't feeling as brutal as it used to be. So I think it's the carbon plate was kind of like the buzzword for a while, but it's the foam technology for sure that's just going to continue to building these human machines.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, what's the hardest part about coaching?
Hardest part, for me, I don't think there's too many hard. There's not a hard part. It's all fun for me.
Thomas.
It's no. It's creative. It's using a little bit of creativity. What are the cues that are going to motivate somebody? Really drilling down into somebody's psyche of their why. Why are you doing this? Yeah, I always kind of try and bring it back to you have these goals and I'm here to help an athlete reach their goals, but get them there healthy and fit and keep reevaluating the goals. And so I don't think there's really any hard part or challenging part. It's all fun. It's like a puzzle. It's one of the reasons why I left doing massage therapy because I get more joy out of working with athletes and helping them in their goals by telling them what to do versus somebody coming to me with an injury or a pain or whatever to get them out of that injury cycle. But it's definitely very rewarding, when I see somebody hit a personal best or get to a starting line happy and healthy.
Okay, so yeah, on the reverse of that, what's been like a highlight of coaching? Was there like a moment or an athlete or?
Well, you let him go right past it. He loves everything about coaching. Like
I do. I actually
paperwork,
do.
billing, all that stuff.
I have a
had
bookkeeper.
someone do that.
I have a bookkeeper. So
Yeah,
it's
so
like-
you hire people to do the
yeah,
parts.
so
You
yeah,
don't like,
yeah.
so you
Yeah,
can
no,
keep the
it's-
joy alive.
I love, I love getting up early in the morning and seeing, workout times and inputting that into my calendar. And there's really, I don't see any drawbacks. It's really fun and amazing.
Because even like the harder things to absorb, like the phone call that someone's injured 2 weeks before their race, he's like, troubleshoot, like let's figure out, like then he's talking the person down, like, okay, so let's reevaluate the goal here. Do you just want to finish? I think you could still finish. Or if the time is really important, maybe this is happening for a reason. And so it's fun. I think it's fun also to troubleshoot some of those moments.
And a question I get a lot is, do you get nervous for your athletes' races? Either if they're at the Olympic trials or they're running a qualifier for Boston or whatever they're doing. And I do not get nervous for any of my athletes' races because I got it all out with her. I was like a wreck the night before. I was usually in Rosie O'Grady's or
New York City.
Yeah, in New York or at the bar.
Sharing
with-
a couple pints.
Couple pints with the agents and other coaches and
Which makes for a rough race morning.
yeah. So I got all that out with her, and I don't get nervous for any of my athletes' races.
So before your big events, you're just out partying and you're at home sleeping. Like, what does that
She
look
was
like?
notorious for going to bed like the night before the Chicago Marathon. I think she went to bed at like 7:30
I'm
that
a good
night.
sleeper.
Really good sleeper, and I would go out and come back about 10.
But
Nothing
he'd sleep on the
crazy.
couch
I'd
then.
say
on the
it's not
couch,
gonna
yeah,
show up
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before we end, it's really been a pleasure to get to know you. And I have to say, in the coaching realm, I think when I decided that I wanted to reach out to Andrew was when we went to Chicago for Megan. And he not only came in the night before, gave her kind of a pep talk,
Aw.
but then the morning of the race
waiting
came,
in the lobby.
walked you to the start. You and Piper were in the VIP section
Yeah.
at the start, but he came and walked her in and talked strategy with her, and I saw how Megan responded, and just how you kind of like tailored it to her personality to what would help Megan kind of ease into the idea that she was going for a lofty goal in Chicago. And I know that she's worked with different coaches and just how excited she was and how well the training cycle went. And I can let you talk to that, but that was pretty much, I was like, oh, I want that.
I want someone to care for my training and racing.
Megan was my coach at the time.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're
Dropped.
fired. Yeah.
Yeah, you call me like, my coach doesn't care she doesn't care very much about
I can't
me.
even get her on the phone.
Yeah. I love it.
I send text messages, she never responds.
Yeah, no, what's ironic about that is I reached out to Andrew because he was coaching Mac and Robbie
Right.
from our team, and they were saying how hard it was. And
Yeah.
they were like, this training is crushing my soul. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's the guy.
Yeah,
That's the
that's the guy I want. You don't want the guy that's going to be soft because
Yeah.
he has to
Well,
meet
she
you
did. She
meet you
worked-
for dinner that night.
She worked with one coach that was lower mileage, and Megan loves running. Mm-hmm. So when she heard, I think it was Robbie talking about it, he was like, oh, this is too much, running too far. And he's like, okay, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
that's my guy.
Well, one of my mentors, and I'm gonna bring it back to Coach V Hill, who's a rock for us, and he's taught me so much. He taught Deena a lot as well. And one of the things that he told me early on when I first started dating Deena, and him and I would have coffee early in the morning, and he told me, he's like, no, Andrew, you're only as good as you want to be. And that has stuck with me for like almost 25 years.
He uses it a lot.
You're only as good as you want to be. You give like a little excuse of something, and he's like, well, you're only as, he would say something else, but you're only as good as you want to
I
be.
should write down all the life
And it was-
situations you say that.
Yeah,
You say that.
it is true. It's like, well, how good do you want to be? It's like, well, what's your priorities, basically, right? And so I always think about that, and I try to pass that along to the athletes I coach, and we all have jobs and we all work, we have family, we have obligations. But, for my elite athletes, that's their job. It's their job to go to bed early and sleep a lot and eat well and get their stretching in.
And there's really what I learned with Andrew is there are gracious ways to narrow your focus on what you're trying to do. You don't have to say no in a snotty way. You can say, I am really in the zone right now, and when I get back, I'd love to have a dinner party. There's so many buildups where I love to host things, and I just had to temper that back and let Sunday brunch be our thing at the house, and just realize that when this race is over, I could have the most epic dinner party back at the house. But it's important to know that when you find a nice way to prioritize what you're doing, it's so empowering because your friends don't go away. Right. When you think so hard about missing out on things, or even family holidays. Like, we could spend Christmas on a different time. You could always celebrate a holiday on an obscure day of the week. It doesn't have to be on the traditional day. So I think there's just gracious ways that you can learn to streamline your focus without feeling like you're missing out or insulting anybody, but prioritizing all the things that you love, just in a certain order.
Okay, this will be our final question.
Dun, dun, dun.
What are you guys most excited for in Paris this trip?
You say first.
Just going to track and field, just seeing the events. I mean, I was counting them out. This is my 7th Olympic experience in some capacity or another, either as a support staff or as a coach or as just a spectator. But just always seeing track and field. It's the greatest track meet on earth. So and experiencing that with our daughter, Piper, who's here, and having her be this is her first Olympic experience. So seeing the Olympics through her eyes, and of course seeing Paris through her eyes too, is a lot of fun.
She didn't like that me waving the American flag in the stadium kept blocking her view yesterday. I'm like, I'm just getting excited, like, stand up. It's been thrilling. And I love that we started watching on television to it just, Paris looked so shiny and beautiful on television. And it's even more electric to be in that stadium. But I'm excited for the marathons. I mean, the men's marathon, having Clayton in the race, just be cheering wildly for him. And when you see that someone seems so ready, it gets me fired up. And then the women's marathon, just because I've seen the evolution of this sport and having world record holders and the top two of the top 3 fastest women in history up against each other, the defending champion, and then the U.S. in the distance races, specifically on the men's side, has done an epic job, from Grant Fisher kicking it off in style, getting a bronze medal in 10,000 meters, to 2 medals in the 1,500 meters, a medal in the 3,000 steeplechase. It's just been unbelievable. So American distance running is in a really good place, both at the top professional level, but also in participation. So it just fires me up.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you guys for joining us today. I know you have busy schedules while you're here in Paris, so
Thank
we appreciate you taking time to chat with us.
It's been fun.